Hi everybody, I'm Susan Mulvihill. I'm coming to you from Spokane, Washington, where it is a very rainy, drizzly day, and as you can see, we got a bunch of snow before that, so it's kind of a slushy mess here. Now there isn't a whole lot of gardening going on, but I have a great idea for this week's video. I want to talk about attracting birds to your garden. You know, birds are just the coolest things to watch. Bill and I are avid bird watchers, and I wanted to explain some of the things we have done to attract birds to our garden. Now, the first thing I wanted to point out is what our property used to look like when we first bought it. We're on 5 acres, and as you can see by this photo, there is nothing except one little ponderosa pine seedling, and that was it. So we knew there were a lot of things we needed to do, and those are the things I want to point out today. And then what I'm going to do is follow it up with a slideshow of the birds that we typically see in our garden throughout a year's time. And then at the end, I've got a really cool resource to show you that's on my website. Now, because our property was so wide open, we knew that birds really wouldn't want to come here because they wouldn't feel safe. They need places to hide in, either to escape predators in the form of falcons or hawks that are after the smaller birds, or maybe from cats. They need places to nest in and raise their families. And so we looked at the whole area and we said, okay, how do we want to landscape this to make those birds feel comfortable? Now, if you look at this photo, you can see we've been busy over the years, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. Bill and I planted lots of different types of trees, both evergreens such as ponderosa pines, Douglas firs, and spruces, and deciduous trees like hawthorns, aspens, and maples. We also planted various types of shrubs and even a hedge next to our garden, which the quail love to roost in. What about food? The only types of food that we buy for the birds is black oil sunflower seeds and suet cakes. For the seeds, we use tube feeders rather than platform feeders that birds can walk in, because that's an easy way to spread disease. If your wildlife department has announced that there are bird disease issues such as bird flu or salmonella in your area, be sure to clean your feeders and put them away until the danger is gone. We have planted a lot of trees and shrubs that provide berries for the birds, and I leave flowering plants that have seed heads for the birds to eat during the fall and winter months. Berry sources include natives like this snowberry bush, service berries, red twig dogwoods, golden currants, and the American cranberry bush. Examples of flowers that have great seed heads for the birds include coneflowers, gloriosa daisies, black-eyed Susans, and bee balm. Uh-oh, it's starting to rain again. We also knew that water would be a great attractant because birds need it for drinking and for bathing. We have 4 water sources for them. 2 bird baths, including one that is heated during the winter so that they always have a drinking source. We also have a small pond, which is a little hard to see under the slushy ice right now, but it is a 50-gallon preformed pond that we put in, and that's a nice water source for them. And last but certainly not least is this large pond, which is a huge hit with the birds. So it is approximately 11 feet by 17 feet, 3 feet deep, but there's a shallow plant shelf that runs on the inside around the perimeter of the pond, and it provides great places for the birds to drink and bathe. Now, that black pipe normally is not seen, and Bill pulled it out of our filter because the filter is outside the pond and that can freeze solid during the winter. And what we have, if you see that little red thing floating in the pond, that is a water heater, and it's to keep at least a small area of the pond open so that the birds can get to the water. Okay, those are the main points I wanted to share with you. Now let's go somewhere that is warm and dry, and I want to show you the different types of bird species that visit our garden. I think I lost count at 85 different species, which is so cool. Okay, I mentioned at the beginning of this video that I have a really cool resource for you on my website. It's completely free, but it's got a lot of very helpful and interesting things on it. So let me show you how to find it. The first thing that you want to do is go to the guides menu, and you'll notice the very first item in there is called Birds in the Garden. So you click on that, and then you'll see that there are some different options, tips for attracting birds, My Backyard Birds. I'll show you that in a moment, but that's a guide to the different kinds of birds that come here. Bird photography tips. I get asked about this a lot, so there's some interesting things in there that I share. And then bird watching resources, which includes the Merlin ID app. It is free and it is absolutely fabulous, so you want to be sure to check on that. But if we go to the My Backyard Birds, I just want to give you an example of what you can find here. So I have this long chart with the names of the birds that come to our garden listed alphabetically, and then over here is a profile of each one. When you go to a profile, let me just move this up, you'll see photos of the bird, what their Latin name is, just in case you're interested in that, what their length and wingspan is, because that can help you identify them in your own garden, what they eat, that is extremely helpful, what their typical habitat is. Now the interesting thing is that in the case of red-winged blackbirds, they like marshes and other wetlands. I'm sure you've heard them in those types of areas. They also like grain fields. Well, we do have a couple farmed fields around us, so that might be why they show up for a small period of time during the year. Plants that will attract the birds. So I list those. And again, this is for all different kinds of birds, so this is going to be different information for every profile. Where they nest, it really helps knowing, do they nest in the ground? Do they prefer a dense shrub? Do they prefer to be in, let's say, an area near a meadow? Who knows what? So that is information that you need. And then my personal observations, sometimes it's a funny story that I relate or other interesting things I've learned about them over the year. So I hope that you'll check out this section because I put a lot of time into it. And again, it's Birds in the Garden under the Guides menu. Be sure to check it out. Well, that's everything I wanted to share with you today. I hope you found this video interesting and that you picked up some tips for attracting even more birds to your garden. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. I'll see you next time.